Hello and welcome to the All Strong podcast. Today we'll be joined by Chad Kultgen, who is a novelist and podcaster and writer of many other things from Los Angeles, California. So for those of you who don't know, Chad Kultgen is primarily known for his podcast work, especially recently with Dudesy and some of the other work he does with several reality TV shows across the States. But he is an outspoken voice on the future of technology and artificial intelligence and things like that. And he also has some really, really interesting perspectives on training physically and how diet kind of affects the life. So I thought whenever he offered to come on people's podcasts for 20 minutes at a time, that I would chat to him about some of the things he will often talk about on the podcast that I like to listen to. So if you're not familiar with his work, things that I would recommend would be going to listen to the 10-minute podcast, which has been discontinued, but really, really good while it lasted. And currently he's on Dudesy, which is a podcast generated and sort of curated by an artificial intelligence. Both of those podcasts are comedy in genre, really, really fun to listen to, extremely entertaining, but they also offer it's more so Dudesy than the 10-minute podcast, offer a lot of things for you to think about in terms of how technology is integrating with life at the minute and how it looks like it might integrate in the future. So I thought it'd be really cool, as well as to ask him about the perspectives he has on training and nutrition, to speak to him just a little bit about what training might look like in the next few years, especially from a coaching perspective. So we had a really, really interesting discussion, and I really, really, really enjoyed talking to him. It was cool to finally get to chat to somebody who I've listened to for years on end now in different places and different things, and someone whose novels I've read, and then to finally have them appear on a Zoom call and chat to them, and to have them obviously turn out to be so pleasant and normal and friendly. It was a really, really unique experience, and if Chad does get to listen to this, I'd really like to thank him for that, because it was... I'm just going to take a moment to interrupt myself here. This is the first video podcast that I've ever done, which is why the background and the general appearance of things isn't that good. It also changes the way that I announce things, oddly enough, which has led to me forgetting to actually tell you where you can find Chad Kultgen. In the video version of the podcast, his Instagram links will be contained within some visuals. But if you're not watching, check out Chad Kultgen on Instagram. You can find him at Chad Kultgen. You can also find him at Dudesy Pod Show, and you can also find him at Bachelor Clues, among other different accounts as well. Thanks again to Chad for that. If you're looking for any novel recommendations, the two of Chad's novels that I've read that I can find in the UK anyway are Strange Animals and The Average American Male. They're really, really unique in nature, but I'll not try and spoil them. But without me wasting any more of your time fanboying over the guy who I interviewed, here is my chat with Chad Kultgen.
What's up, man?
I'm fantastic. How are you?
Doing good.
Thank you so much for doing this. This is the first time I've...
Please, my pleasure.
The long
Thanks for having me on.
Of it is really, really sweet. So this is cool. The kind of focus of stuff that I do, a super small podcast, but what I look at is perspectives around strength training and how it kind of impacts people. And I thought, listening to you, I've listened to you for years on different things, and the way you deal with physical strength and diet and things like that, I think would be a really interesting perspective, even for the audience that I've already got. So I'd like to ask you some questions on...
Yeah, man, whatever you want. I'm down.
So I know you, during the pandemic, you started training with the paint cans method. I was going to ask you a little bit about the
oh my god. Yeah,
I'm kind of like traditional.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think like during the pandemic, anybody who was doing any kind of workouts, like going to the gym with any regularity or whatever during the pandemic, like that, we all went into lockdown globally, so that was gone, at least for a little while. Like, you couldn't go to the gym. I remember when gyms reopened and you had to still wear a mask while you were working out in the gym, which was a fucking nightmare. But yeah, during the pandemic, I was like, well, I got to do something because I still want to do like some form of weight training. I was going out at night and jogging and stuff, but I wanted to still feel like I was like doing something kind of like a little heavier. And so I just looked around my house and I was like, what do I have laying around here that I can lift? And I found a curtain rod and some paint cans, put the paint cans on the end of the curtain rod, and that became like a makeshift barbell for whatever it was, a year and a half, until I was able to get some weights. But like, as you know, in the beginning of the lockdown, you go on Amazon and you try to get like even just little 30-pound dumbbells or whatever. They're all sold out everywhere.
We look at whenever my brother and I we lived with my family during the pandemic, and we had we had a garage, so we were able to buy some weights, but the price went from, it's usually about £2.50 per kilogram here, between that and £3, so maybe like $5 or $6. The price jumped, nearly tripled at times. It was
Oh my God.
just trying to find the weight. So we got it just at the right time, and then we were able to pick up some crazy old like strongman gear, so like Atlas stones and
Oh,
log,
cool.
which was pretty sweet. But whenever it comes to having developed that strength, like that's something you kind of went out of your own way to develop that.
Yeah.
Do you have any reasons why you specifically wanted to be stronger, or is it like, do you find it spreads out into the rest of your life, or is it something you just like?
Yeah, I mean, I played high school sports, and you know, they make you lift weights, especially in American football here. Um, you know, part of your practice is like going in the weight room, especially in the off season. And it always just was kind of like something that I've done. It's like just been a part of my kind of general fitness regimen for I don't know, since I was like 13 or
Yeah.
something. How whenever the first time was I started doing it. And I just don't like at this point in my life, if I don't get in the gym for a while, I feel like off, you know, if I'm not doing some kind of
Yeah.
weightlifting. And I assume that will be the case for the rest of my life. I mean, you look at somebody, I'm not comparing myself to Schwarzenegger, but you look at somebody like him who's, you know, 70 years old and the guy is still lifting weights every day. Like, you know, and he's in great shape and all that. I assume he's not doing steroids as much anymore. But you know, I hope to maintain some level of it because I do think like just feeling strong, feeling like you don't have trouble like
Yeah.
lifting a box or whatever is nice. And there's a bunch of studies that have said, you know, the more muscle you can maintain into your old age, just the better off you're going to be generally.
Yeah, it kind of the leverage that maintaining muscle has on your joints.
Mhm.
It's good for preventing stuff like osteoporosis and things like that. But has there been like a strength milestone that you've liked to hit? Because I found what a nice one for me. I was pushing for like strength sports at a time, so I was pushing quite far. But I was at a like an amateur film shoot one time, and they needed a fridge moved, and
Mhm.
being able to move the fridge for these people was quite a rewarding thing. Like knowing that I'd been
Yeah.
strong enough to then help them do something like that. Is there anything like that that's happened to you?
Dude, I used to play in a like an adult men's baseball league here
Yeah.
well into my late 30s. Well beyond when I should have still been doing
Yeah.
it. But there was a season I remember I had in my must have been late 20s or early 30s maybe, where and it was abysmal. Like I fucking my batting average was shit. I didn't hit any home runs and I just got fucking pissed. And I was like, all right, fuck this. Next season, I'm gonna come back and all I'm gonna do is hit home runs. So in that off season, I was at the gym literally every day,
Yeah.
did not miss a day, eating protein shakes, protein powders, and I do like a heavy weight routine. Then there was at the time immediately across the street from my gym a batting cage, and I'd go over there for an hour and just fucking swing a baseball bat as hard as I could. And I came back that next season and goals were achieved. I was just crushing the shit out of the ball. And I remember hitting one home run, like it's indelible in my mind. I will never forget
Yeah.
every element of this. We were at this college here in Los Angeles, like kind of north of Los Angeles, and it was a dead center was 380 feet, which is like not crazy, but it's like it's kind of far. And I remember this pitcher just fucking launched a fastball right down the middle. I can still see it fucking spinning in my head. And I just hit it right on the fucking screws. And it was a line drive straight over the fucking center field fence. And I was just like, Jesus Christ. Like that's insane. What I just did, I didn't believe myself capable of doing. And I think it was because I just had so much muscle. I was so
Yeah.
big at the time.
That's it's really nice to sort of it's always nice to have those markers or the things that remind you what you've
Yeah.
done. I quite like that. But what you've already, you've mentioned things that are in your history already, and I know from like 10-minute podcast kind of days that your diet then and your diet now are very, very different.
Yeah, to say the least.
Yeah, because I mean I've listened to Doozy since it started, and I
Oh,
listened to
cool.
10-minute podcast towards the end, but I've covered it all eventually. Um, so right now you're more or less a strict vegan, right? Apart from like
Yeah.
McDonald's apples pies, I guess was one kind of interruption to that.
Yeah, every once in a while I'll have something like that, but that's pretty few and far between. I'm pretty adherent to the vegan diet at this point.
Okay. It's not something I've ever tried, but I was keen. I've heard a little bit about your reasoning for changing your diet. I mean, was veganism more of a thing that helped you keep clean, or is it more of a health reason? Because I know you've had health complications with your food and things as
Yeah.
well.
It's
So
it's specifically just cancer. Like when I was going through this cancer treatment, I was just reading up on like everything you can do essentially to minimize your likelihood of recurrence.
yeah,
And diet is obviously one of the biggest things. There are a million different foods that fight cancers, and if you have a diet that is very high in those foods, mathematically it reduces the chances of you getting cancer again by a lot in some cases. And for some certain specific types of cancer, a diet can be like really effective. And everything I was reading was basically like all meat is carcinogen in one way or another.
yeah,
Some are worse than others, and the more you cook it, the worse it becomes, and all that stuff. But I was just like, well, fuck it, let me give this a try. And then at a certain point, like I liked it because it also is. It's not just about cancer. It like super boosts your immune system. So like I just wasn't getting sick ever, and I was like, fuck, I feel crazy. I feel
yeah,
like sharp and alert, and just like more energy and all of that, and just better. Like I just felt generally better, like a healthier kind of I don't know how to explain it. Like I remember when I was eating a lot of meat, but again, I wasn't eating like the greatest meat. I was eating like, fucking double cheeseburgers and shit every day.
yeah.
But that said, I always just had a little bit of like a lethargic kind of feel that I wasn't even aware of. And then when I switched to being vegan, I was like, oh my God, this is night and day. I just feel like clearer.
Yeah.
So I've continued with it. And over the course of, I guess I've been vegan for about 5 years. Over the course of it, also, I have now gotten to a point where psychologically I'm repulsed by the idea of eating a
Oh,
corpse.
yeah. I've heard you mention that actually. That's something
Yeah.
that really interests me. Like I have managed that with certain types of food in the past, but not with an entire sort of quadrant of
Yeah.
food itself, which is really interesting. Um, do you find is there anything that you kind of miss from when you ate meat and things, or is it not like all of it just completely?
No, it's like so repulsive to me at this point. It's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like eating
Yeah.
shit almost or something,
Yeah.
I just like not only do I not miss it, the thought of it is repulsive to me.
Gross. Um, then so whenever you talk about, I know you've done a lot of research and a lot of reading and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is the lifestyle you have now something you would try to recommend to other people, or do you believe it to be individual in a
Mm,
lot of ways?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's worked for me pretty well, but yeah, I don't think Will could be vegan, for example. And like whatever, no harm, no foul. I don't have any kind of like,
It doesn't
you
annoy you
know,
when someone doesn't take it on.
no.
Yeah.
I have no moral judgment on anybody who's not vegan or anything like that. I don't really I very rarely give a shit about what anyone does with their life, diet included. It's like whatever makes you happy, whatever you think is helping get you through whatever this fucking thing is,
Yeah.
that we call life and reality. I'm down for it. But yeah, I mean, I would encourage everybody to try it for maybe like 3 months, I think. Gives you a good idea of like, A, is it benefiting you? Are you feeling better on the diet? And B, could you actually do it?
Yeah. Okay. That's really good because it's something it's on my mind at some point, but there's always stuff going on that interrupts lifestyle.
Yep.
Um, but so kind of to switch away from that a little bit, you talk a lot about how technology and artificial intelligence things interact with careers and the future and stuff.
Mm.
Um, and I mean, from the way you speak, you've kind of come to terms with the fact that careers like your own might be redundant in the next even 12 months. I still haven't come to terms with the fact that mine might be redundant within 12 or so months. I'm a coach. Um, but have you thought much about how technology will sort of interlink with fitness in the near future?
Yeah. I mean, shit, dude, we saw a lot of it, I feel like, in the pandemic. A lot of these companies, like Peloton, for example,
Yeah,
had these programs where you can buy one of their machines, and in that machine is a screen that has like programs and stuff with either real people or virtual people or whatever. But the idea that, to have a personal trainer or coach, you can just get that online now.
yeah,
And in some cases, those coaches are not real people. They are AI generated avatars that are telling you whatever the workout is, and all this kind of stuff. And obviously that can be tailored directly to whatever your goals are, or your body type, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I mean, I think AI ultimately is, I don't think it's going to make like jobs redundant necessarily. I just think it's going to make the labor of all these jobs easier. And for that reason, you're looking at like clerical work, for example, in any business, I think that's going to be gone pretty much. I think that will be made redundant. But ultimately, like, I'm enthused by it. How it's going to change every industry. But yeah, with working out and fitness specifically, I'm hopeful that like the one of the best things that will come of AI integration into that is that an AI will be able to look at your specific diet, your specific body type, your specific everything, and tailor make a routine for you that could include nutrition, that could include a workout, that could include weight training, you know, whatever. And I think AI will be better at that than people for sure.
Yeah, I've been able to tailor things really, really specifically like that. But I was actually, when I was planning these questions, I was thinking about asking, because I will also coach sport as well as individual people. I have some team coaching stuff in my repertoire as well. Obviously, I mean, when you talk about going from an individual to a team, a program can kind of scale that as well. There's not a huge amount of difference, but it made me an interesting thought. Like, when you're replacing the coaching aspect of things, what do you reckon becomes the point of the sport? If you know what I mean, like if replacing all the different elements that come before, for the athletic side, if you can generate sport that's more entertaining than real sport, a lot of the meaning behind why we consume these things can change.
Sure.
You know, is there any relevant nature to sport left over if you can keep scaling?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I would point you to like race car driving, you know, Formula One or NASCAR or whatever in this country. It's like how much of that is the people involved and how much is the machine. And you know, in some cases, like these races are won by like a split second. And that could be because you put a different tire on the car at the right time or the pit stop took, you know, whatever. And I know there are people involved in that, but like the merger of technology and human beings in sport has been happening since the dawn of sport. Even the invention of like running shoes, that is technically technology, you know, that changed the way we're going to run forever. You can't play any sport in America without technology. You can't play basketball, baseball, football, not even hockey without a ball or a puck or a hockey stick or an ice skate. Or at this point, I mean, you've got a million cameras and all that shit also broadcasting it. But in terms of how it changes like coaching or our motivations for why we're doing it, I think people will always want to play sports because it scratches that competitive itch. But in terms of like at the highest level, if you're looking at like the NFL here in the United States, like will coaches have an AI doing play calls? They fucking better. And then it's going to be which team has the best AI that can make the best play call in this situation to counteract that defense or this offense or, you know, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, I think AI is going to be fully integrated into the strategy side of all sports at the highest levels. In terms of coaching, you know, do you still need a human person out there telling the players like, here, we're going to run this play or we're going to do whatever? Yeah, I think so, because I think that the at least the symbol of a leader for any kind of athletic team, I think, is important, and like you're saying, kind of part of the mythology of why we do it in the first place. So I don't think that'll be changed necessarily.
That's a totally different way from how I was thinking about it. I actually find that really, really interesting. The idea of it being like ultimate, the ultimate frame of performance and how that factors in that way. That was one thing I didn't think about. I really, really appreciate that. But yeah, we got through. I was worried we wouldn't get through all the questions I wrote, but we've completely destroyed them. So that's really, really cool.
Fantastic.
The 20-minute window actually works really, really well. I might use that from now on.
Yeah, man, feel free.
But thank you so much for doing this. I really, really appreciate it.
Dude, my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, that's all. Yeah, I've obviously been a fan of you for years, and the Average American Male is one of the only books that's kind of I've gone through in like an afternoon and stuff like that. So it's really cool to actually speak to you in person. So I appreciate.
Oh, cool, man. I appreciate you reading it.
Cool, thanks. I give you a minute or so just to move on to the next one. We're a tiny little bit early, so but I appreciate it,
cool.
man. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, man. Have a good rest of your weekend.
You too. Thanks. Yeah, that was like a heck of a lot of fun. Really, really enjoyable discussion. If you came here to this show because of Chad, do check out the other episodes because there's a lot of good information from my perspective and from the perspective of other people I've worked with and met in the past as well. So check out some other episodes of the show and do get in touch and do send me topics if you want the next series of these episodes to have an answer to a question that you've had. Especially if you're new, it's usually just my own network that interacts with this podcast. So if you are someone who's come here because of this interview specifically, do send me questions and do get in touch. You can get in touch via ethan@all-strong.com, or you can look up ES Strength Coach on Instagram. I really hope you stick around for future episodes whenever the third series drops. That should be sometime, hopefully within the new year. We'll see, because it's normally every January that I begin these. So do send me the questions and I'll get working. And if I get enough questions and enough responses, I'll probably put out the third season a lot earlier. But otherwise, thanks again to Chad Kultgen for joining me, and thanks to everybody for listening, and I will see you next time. The All Strong podcast is an independent production recorded and produced by Ethan Savage. The intro and outro music is performed and written by Below Bermuda. If you'd like to support the show, please check out the Buy Me a Coffee page at linktr.ee/allstrongpod, where you'll find everything else you need to know as well, including how you can ask questions on the air. If you'd like to get in touch with the show directly, check out ethan@all-strong.com.